Hello guys, I wanted to talk with you today about Elon Musk and his recent purchasing and becoming the largest shareholder of Twitter. So now that Elon Musk is somewhat in the driver's seat on Twitter, I don't know how that's going to change Twitter. Probably not much, because he's not going to have he may continue to buy more and more Twitter. So Elon Musk is now the largest shareholder of Twitter, which of course, him being the richest man in the world, of course makes this troublesome. And anybody who pretends that it's not, I don't think they're really examining. Just because this guy is pro-free speech, or at least he says that he's a free speech absolutist, which I am, and I agree with that if that's true, but we've got no reason to think that this is true. I mean, the man's a businessman. One could argue he's the most successful living businessman in the world. And he knows how to run a business, and so I would have to ask, what is his policies at companies like Tesla and SpaceX or the Boring Company or whatever? He's got several companies. Does this man believe in free speech in the workplace? Does he allow his employees unfettered free speech? I would highly doubt it. I don't see how he could be. I mean, I'm sure these are progressive companies, these are forward-thinking companies, but the tech industry has done nothing but show that they don't see free speech as they don't view free speech as forward. They don't envision a free speech world. They don't envision democracy. I mean, every tech company has proven to grow more authoritarian over the last since I started using the internet. At least, over the last 20 years, the internet has become more polished and more streamlined, but of course much more managed, much more tamed and controlled, and the most unreasonable or controversial thoughts and figures are forced to the boundaries, or in the case of Donald Trump, entirely banned while he was president. He was still president when he was banned. He was not the ex-president. He was president when he was banned from Twitter, Facebook, maybe Google or YouTube. I don't know about YouTube. But point being that Elon Musk is the richest man in the world, and he wants more and more and more control of Twitter. Why does Elon Musk want this control? And is it really any worse than billionaires who we already know have bad interest? I guess that it can't be any worse than Twitter is right now. So Twitter is as bad as it's ever been, and this won't make it better. I was lucky enough to never really use Twitter, because by the time I got a smartphone, I already had reasons not to like Twitter. Basically by 2017, which is when I got my first smartphone, I already hadn't been using Twitter by that point by 2017, and by that point, I didn't see much use in it. So I've always had a problem with Twitter, but now but this isn't the antidote to Twitter. And the antidote simply cannot come from a billionaire. A multi-billionaire, the wealthiest man in the world, does not possess the solution to free speech. He simply doesn't. In fact, every corporate structure, every organized corporation essentially is an anti-free speech authoritarian system. I mean, how can a businessman, how can the world's most successful businessman, the wealthiest man in the world, how can he possibly believe in democracy? I mean, there is no democracy in a corporation. I mean, he's the CEO. He could fire anybody at any time. And of course, I really would hesitate to think that that his companies possess any concept of free speech abnormal to your typical company, where of course your free speech is very limited. You can't be talking about the company in social media. You can't. Of course, free speech has never been practiced to the letter in any corporation. So why would it be any different for Elon Musk why would he treat Twitter different than any other company? Or if he were to create his own social media, and one could argue that since Donald Trump has been banned from Twitter, that Elon Musk has become the closest thing to Donald Trump, in the sense that he's outspoken, he says a lot of off-the-cuff things, a lot of dumb things, honestly. Like, I never thought that Elon Musk was dumber than... I know he's a genius in his own way. He is a genius. He's a business and tech genius, but I would not call him any kind... He does not possess a nuanced... he does not possess nuanced opinions on a variety of issues. Economic, political, I don't trust social, I don't trust Elon Musk's judgment when it comes to these things. And every social media company takes some form of free speech away. Every company censors in that world. Why would an Elon Musk ran social media be any different? I don't think it will be. So on the one hand, I don't think that Twitter can be any worse than it is already. But on the other hand, maybe Twitter could improve with Elon Musk. But on the other hand, Elon Musk dwarfs most of the billionaires in the world with his wealth. He is the wealthiest man in the world. NASA depends on him. Entire electrical systems. I mean, like, the man has so much power, much more power than anybody who's ever owned Twitter has ever had. So, and if he were to create his own company that's like Twitter, it would I don't like it, you know? Like I said, I don't think... Twitter's obviously a terrible company, and I would not suggest anybody use it. But I also think that the richest man in the world does not have our best interests in mind. And he's working on... The man is on a PR campaign. He's trying to maintain his image. He sees the way billionaires are getting taken down a peg. What's happened to Bill Gates and how Bill Gates is losing the narrative, and he wants to watch his back. Now he has to watch his back, essentially. And how is this any different? This is his PR final solution is to purchase good press. I mean, do you think Elon Musk? I mean, are you going to be able to criticize Elon Musk's companies on Twitter now that he's the most powerful shareholder of Twitter? I mean, it remains to be seen if Elon Musk really believes in free speech or not. But but nobody gets to be the wealthiest man in the world by adhering to democratic values. I've just never. I mean, every business. I mean, he's in a. To run a business, you have to be an authoritarian, essentially, or at least traditionally speaking. I don't see how how Elon Musk's companies could be any different than the rest, or remarkably different to the level that he's claiming. You know, he claims to be a free speech absolutist. But where's the proof? I mean, he's never wielded this kind of power over speech. So we've got nothing to trust him on. We got nothing to back up his word with, except how he handles his own companies currently. What kind of speech and intolerant policies do they have at Elon Musk's companies? Because if he believed in free speech as an absolutist, people. I mean, you would see that reflection in the workplace under him. So it's not a good thing that Elon Musk wants this power and that he's trying to get it, and that every major tech company is dipping its hands in media. I mean, Apple is. I'm sure that there's plenty more, but what business does Apple have making TV and movies? It makes no sense. What business does Elon Musk have making a social media company? He doesn't. In fact, it's amazing that he has the influence on Twitter that he does. I mean, sure, the man is brilliant in his own way, but why anybody would think he's got anything worth saying publicly, I don't know. It baffles me, because he's kind of a moron on Twitter. He's more like Donald Trump. I mean, he's the closest thing to Donald Trump on Twitter these days. And he got that power by Donald Trump being taken off Twitter. It's not that he couldn't have had it. I mean, he was an influential person on Twitter before Trump and after Trump, but Trump being off Twitter, being banned, has helped Elon Musk. So I don't know. I don't know what his stance is on Trump being banned, but what's fascinating, what I just learned today, actually, what's really fascinating about this is, if any of you are familiar with Robert Reich, who served in multiple presidential administrations, and most notably for Clinton between '93 and '97. This Robert Reich guy, who's seen as a progressive, he talks a lot about economic issues, but he recently spoke on this matter, and so not only is Robert Reich in support of Trump's banning from Twitter, but he also has a lot of grievances on Elon Musk taking over Twitter, or getting more power on Twitter, or starting his own social media. He really doesn't like it. I'm kind of in the middle. Like I said, on the one hand, how can it get any worse? Twitter, that is. On the other hand, it's the wealthiest man in the world trying to get more power. So, I don't like it. And I'm a little indifferent. But it's still a bad thing, I think. He agrees, but Robert Reich also thinks that Trump should be banned. So I would hesitate to take anything he says too seriously going forward, because anybody who says that Trump should have been banned from Twitter, I don't take them seriously, because they're not negotiating in bad. I mean, it's just bad faith. It's ill intent There's no good reason to ban a president. There's no good reason to ban most people from these sites. But here we are talking about it, and so anyway, in conclusion, Elon Musk buying Twitter or making his own site, it's bad news. No good can come of it. The wealthiest man in the world is trying to get more power. I don't see how it's anything else. Anyway, thanks guys.